What's up, Deadheads? It's Brian Castrillo, and I just watched Fear the Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 6, mid-season finale, titled All I See Is Red. Ian Goldberg, Andrew Chambliss, thank you for this. This story was so good. There is nothing I did not like about this story. And in fact, this wasn't just fan service in this episode. This was story service, because literally everything that we got in this, there were so many moments that made me smile and so many moments that made me like, oh my God. But it all connected. It brought everything full circle. This didn't feel like a mid-season finale. It felt like a finale of a season. And my goodness, let's just get downright. Let's just talk about it, because I love this. Now, when Madison Clark, when she left the series, back at at the baseball stadium, one of the things that Lenny James had said is he wanted his character to work with Madison Clark, because he had always wanted to work with Kim Dickens, and we never got that. Why that didn't happen in that season, I don't know. But when I say that they were so good in this episode, it was worth the wait. This is what we waited for. Kim Dickens and Lenny James. I love this episode, and those two working together was just so good. But let's talk about it, because I absolutely love this episode. So we begin this we begin this episode where Madison is waking up Morgan. You got walkers, everywhere. It's just all crazy. It's dirty. It's, and what we got out of this is this episode, through special effects and whatnot, really told the story of what it's like for Morgan when all he sees is red. How that we got that from his perspective, and how that just the way they did this was just so beautifully done. I absolutely loved it. Now, Madison and Morgan, they're kind of having this conversation of, all I see is red, what that means to him. And you see, like, throughout this episode, like, literally the whole screen's red, because we're seeing through Morgan's eyes. But, we see Madison and Morgan, sees clear on the wall of the train, and Morgan's basically telling him he doesn't know, he's not himself when this happens. And he has to get to the shipyard to stop Mo, to save her, because there's no way he can lose her again. We see, and Shrike mentions how she's taken these containers on a cargo ship. Now, I feel that I've always felt that Shrike and her brother were basically incompetent, and they're not the leader types. Their dad, like in the beginning, when the incompetent brother was running, to get him these binoculars to save him, I thought that was really stupid. But now, like, we understand in this episode, we understand how important they were. But their dad had definitely a lot of other people around him. So I always felt that where they need to get these to containers, it's who are they working with? There's got to be somebody else. I feel like this is the beginning of the CRM, and possibly this is where we might find Victor later on. But that we don't know that from this episode. That's just my gut feeling that Victor is involved further down the road. Now, we see Morgan, and he's talking to Mo, and he's basically saying on the radio not to run, don't be like him. And she's with the kids in the swamp. You see Dove there, and again, these flashbacks of the red are just like they're pumping on the screen, and just the visual that we see is so fucking cool. I sorry for the swear there, but June mentions how the kids are heading out to the houseboat, and you know what? There was so much going on. I had to take notes because it was just so good. And the back and forth that we get with Madison and Lenny James really sets the tone for this, as she's telling him that she's not going to let him lose himself, as Morgan was saying, that she's going to be there for him, and she's going to help him find Mo, and they're going to do this together, and she's going to help Morgan break this cycle of all he sees is red, and she's going to be there for him. This is the leader that the reason why I love Madison. This is where she shines, and she definitely shined in this episode. And she's basically assuring Morgan that she's going to help him get him to his daughter, and they're not going to lose her. We see, you know, then they're walking towards like thousands of walkers in the field, and Morgan has another breakdown, and all he sees is red. But Shrike is telling Mo also, you know, jumping from scenes, that Mo needs to get to find these coordinates that are, you know, on a carrion somewhere with these binoculars. At first I wasn't thinking about it, but then it all started making sense that this carrion that she's looking for was actually her father. But if you go back to when I was talking about her brother saying that he had to get these binoculars to him, I thought, I mean, it still was stupid, but I didn't realize the importance of them. And that's why I'm glad that these binoculars had some sort of importance, because that made what her brother did less stupid. Still stupid, but I digress. Now, Morgan tells Mo not to listen to Shrike, but Morgan is also not stable, and we find out that he actually tried to attack. Well, he did. He attacked Daniel and Madison. But he wakes up and he's like, I thought it was quicksand at first, but it's like mud, and he's like up to his chest in this. We see Madison's tank with his axe axe in the middle of it. But he's all by himself, and again, flashing red. I love this. And then now we see Dwight. He's loading his gun, and June's there. We got Sherry. Finch is really sick, and really heartbreaking scene. And Dwight is basically saying he needs to go after Shrike, and he needs to take her out. But June's like, let me do this. You don't want to be like me. I wasn't able to be there for my daughter because I couldn't handle it. You need to be there for your family because they need you. And this kind of made me think that June and Morgan kind of have some similar things, timelines between them, because June, she, you know, a lot of her anguish and a lot of who she is was based on the fact that she could not be there for her daughter in her time of need, similar to how Morgan was not able to be there for, you know, Dwayne. And a lot of this, in a sense, was a foundation of who they became. I just found that little bit kind of interesting, but eventually Dwight agrees, and he goes there to be there for, you know, Sherry and Finch, and June goes off to look for Shrike. Now we see they're in the swamp, and we see Mo. She has a knife that's in Morgan's chest, and that's because he went red. He's doing his red thing again, the red flashing, and she had to basically save him, and she did it because she had no choice but to stab him, because he was trying to kill her and everybody else, because Morgan is really gone at this point. And then Morgan and Mo, they're in the sinking houseboat. She has his hand tied up, and Mo is quite the badass, and fantastic job, and I'm forgetting her name right now, by the actress who plays Mo. But they're in the sinking houseboat. There's walkers coming in, and, you know, Morgan's tied to it, and Mo's basically doing all the heavy lifting and killing the walkers as they're coming in. Now Madison, we see her walking, and she don't even have a tank, and she's caught by Shrike, and then all of a sudden ambushed by Daniel's people, and then all of a sudden ambushed by, you know, the kids and everything. So, but Daniel is able to hold them off while Madison escapes into a boat. And then we got Morgan, you know, he's flashing red, he's killing walkers. Well, no, Morgan's flashing red as Mo's killing walkers, I'm sorry. But Morgan gives a tank that he had there, you know, I guess he was going to give it to Madison, but he gives it to Mo in this scene and said, just go, you know, swim underwater, you can escape, and I will figure a way out of this. And so she swims under the walkers where she's able to get away. And then all of a sudden we see the walker, and it's Shrike's dad. He has the binoculars on there. These are the binoculars that have those coordinates that Shrike wants. Then we see Shrike's brothers has Daniel's team, and they're on their knees like the lineup with Negan. And I'm like, oh my God, we cannot lose Daniel. He is he is literally my favorite character on Fear the Walking Dead, like actual Fear the Walking Dead character. But then Daniel is telling, and this is another reason why I love Daniel, because he has such a thorough backstory through the entire series, and he's reminding or telling them the story of how he was a kid and how he had to kill, all these people for Sombra Negra, and how it affected him, and basically telling Shrike's brother that this is going to happen to these kids. And of course Dove's saying, don't listen to him, you don't know what you're talking about. But we all know Daniel knows what he's talking about. And it was really knowing Daniel's story is really heartbreaking, knowing everything he's been through, and like it's just one of the reasons why I love him. And then we see, Morgan shows up all of a sudden and basically says, you can have these coordinates. I don't care. Just let them go. You don't have to do this. And even tells Mo, if you want to go with them, you can. But Mo chooses to stay with Morgan, which was another kind of heartwarming moment. And I really like that moment where she chose her father, despite everything that he's been through, instead of going with the Padre crew. And then we see June with Shrike on the table, and got the zombie face in there. And June she's hardcore. She means business at this moment. But this was another great moment where everything was kind of tied perfectly. And she asked, Dwight, what do you want to do? I got Shrike on the table. She hasn't turned yet, even though earlier she actually she came looking for her dad, or looking for Morgan, because Morgan said he had the coordinates. Remember, he found that walker, and he told Shrike this, and she came looking for him, and her walker dad was coming out of the water at this exact moment. She broke down and cried, and just basically allowed her father to bite her, which this is another reason why I say she wasn't competent enough to be a leader of that whole thing. But I get what she was going, where she just wanted to give up. She wanted to just basically end her story once she saw her dad like that. But now June has Shrike on this table. She's not quite turned yet, and she's asking Dwight, what do you want to do? And Dwight's he of course he wants her dead. He wants her to suffer. But then Finch, who's basically on his deathbed, says, give her mercy. And I think this is a moment, because if you go through Dwight's history, everything that he's done with Negan, and how he's had some really cold moments throughout, he wanted to really hurt her. And I think this is probably going to help Dwight going forward. But he basically tells him, give her mercy. And then Shrike's brother comes in, and he's heartbroken. He sees her, he breaks down, he's basically hugging her. And June says, either you do it or I'm gonna do it. Now after that, we see Morgan and Madison on the beach, and this was an absolutely fitting in. Morgan's basically telling Madison that he needs to go back and find the people that he cared about, which he cares about them just as much as he cares about, the people that he's met here, such as Madison and everybody. And he has to get back to them and make sure that they are okay. And Madison is telling him that she's going to basically get the kids and find their parents and make Padre what it was supposed to be. And just an absolutely amazing scene. I love this. And you see them taking off. But right before that, Mo gives Madison her trademark, leather jacket. So we're going to see that again. And then of course they go off into, you know, the water. They speed away. You see the cargo ship there in the background. Who's driving that cargo ship to get it there? Was a question that I was thinking of. But anyways, now this is probably one of my favorite my goodness, scene that I've seen in Morgan. This scene, I just couldn't stop smiling, and you know, it was just done so well. We see Morgan and Mo, they're burying Grace, and they took her all the way to Eastman's grave, which I thought was so cool. And they bury it. It's just a beautiful scene, and I'm glad, you know, Grace had that moment where a lot of times, a lot of our characters that we love, they die either getting shot, they get, you know, bit, and they don't have a great end. But they buried her, and then Morgan gives his bow staff to Mo, who starts training just like Eastman taught her. And I thought that was really cool. And then Morgan says, all life is precious, but it's what you do with the time you have with the people you still have. And then that was beautiful. And then he says this, and he tells Mo that he's going to go back and look for Rick Grimes. And he says, and this is I love this. It came back to season 1, episode 1 of The Walking Dead. He goes, this message is for Rick Grimes. I will leave this message at dawn and leave this radio on for a few minutes after. And of course, all I can see is Rick, you know, in that field where he's calling out to Morgan. He gave, you know, after the whole police station thing, that was absolutely fantastic. I could not stop smiling on that scene right there. But then this scene was also just as beautiful. He kisses his fingers, goes down on you know, the grave, touches it, and then he has like almost like his fighting pose where he looks up and he starts seeing everybody that has touched Morgan's life, from Nick to, you know, Jenny, Dwayne, Grace. We saw Eastman, Alicia. Just such. I love that moment. It was just so good. Ian Goldberg, Andrew Chambliss, thank you for that. That episode was fantastic. Then they're going off to, you know, to find Rick. But then we have a post-credit scene. Now, let me tell you what happens. You got a radio. You hear Madison on the radio. You see a hand that's messing with the radio, starts taking notes from the coordinates that Madison's going. And if you look around, you see a lot of stuff that looks like military type gear. You got a water canteen. You got what looks like a scope, and there's a map of different coordinates that this person has visited, and then he picks up what looks like Victor Strand's glasses. He picks up a hammer, and then looks like Alicia's arm, and puts it, you know, the skeleton arm, and puts it in a bag. And of course, everybody is thinking this is Troy. And first of all, Troy, played by Daniel Sharman, is a phenomenal character. I love it. Season 3 is my favorite season of all of them in Fear the Walking Dead. To me, it is by far the best season. But here's the thing, and I don't believe it's Troy. Do I want it to be Troy? Absolutely. Troy is a fantastic character, but if you go back to Troy's death scene, now you can talk about Madison Clark's death scene, but if you go back to that, we didn't see her die. All we saw is her throw like a flare out, and the walkers were far away. There's at least a good 20 feet away from her. Could have easily walked up and climbed up that wall. So many things could have happened, which we'll find out in the second half, I'm sure. But he had 2 blunt hammers to the side of his head, and if you go back and pause that scene, he's literally laying there. It looks like a hole, or from the blunt force, he gets knocked down. He's underneath the dam. Keep in mind, this dam blows up. The water, you can literally see the water come rushing in and like slams his body, takes him away. If he survived that, holy shit. But whatever. But let's think. There's something when I was watching this and something wasn't right. Now, I also remember there was I think it was, there was a scene, or basically a behind the scenes, where you see the chairs that all the actors sit in, and one said for Troy. So do I believe that they would have been this perfect in this episode and just that? No, I have a feeling like that's bait. Again, if it's Troy, I'm not going to complain. Although I'd rather have Keltaka Walker come back from that season, because that's someone who is an amazing character actor. I would love, he should come back in some form. But anyways, I'm looking at the well, everyone's looking at the Alicia's arm, which I was like, oh my god, and the hammer, of course, which is going to bring back the Troy memories. I get it. I'm focusing on the hands. Now, the hands to me looked very feminine, and I'm looking at different things in the hands. There was one on the right hand. It looked like almost like a scar, or maybe not a scar, but just indentation of the hands. And I'm looking at these hands. They look kind of feminine. And now, Daniel Sharman is not the biggest guy, but those kind of look. I didn't think they were his hands. And if you look at it, there was a watch. Now, Troy did have a watch. It was hard to see because it was in the post-credit scene. It's kind of covered a little bit, but there was a watch there. But I was thinking, who else could have had this different military equipment? Of course, Troy did. He is former military, so I wouldn't be shocked for him to have this stuff. And, the bag looks very similar to the bag that Troy had in the dam before, his body was rushed away. But there's another character that's missing that we have not seen for a while, and that's Al. And I'm looking at these hands, and I keep looking at them because that's just something that's like bugging me. And even before the scene, you see a hair kind of droop down. Now, again, Daniel Sharman in his past has had long hair. Troy had kind of long curly hair, not like this is kind of like coming down like that. It's blonde. And Maggie Grace's hair is very similar to this, like her actual hair. And I was thinking, why wouldn't she have military type weapons? She's literally dating someone from the CRM. She is a big character. She did a lot of cool things, and a lot of things that's connecting back to the Bog. You remember from World Beyond. I would love for this person to be Al. For her to show up. And of course, she's literally basically a detective, even though she's a reporter kind of. But yeah, I don't think it's Troy. If it's Troy, if they can explain how he survived that, and it actually sounds like something could have happened. If they can do the story good, I'll be fine with it. I don't know how it can happen, but we got 6 more episodes. But I would rather that be Al. Al would make much better sense to the story. And to me, that would be keen or big towards going towards, the eventual CRM connection. But yeah, this felt more like a season finale, not a mid-season finale, because it was that damn good. Good Lord, we still have 6 more left. But not only that, my God, we only have 6 more left. I can't believe it's coming to an end, but I'm looking forward to, the 3 spinoffs that we have. But what did you guys think? I know this has gone on, it's 24 minutes, but what did you guys think? Did you love this episode as much as I did? I want to hear from you. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about that post-credit scene. Do you think it's Troy, or do you think it's someone else? Let's talk about it.